Glad to have you back, everyone. Thanks for staying with us. Now, it's been more than a week of diplomatic outreach for President Bola Tinubu, first to the Caribbean island of St. Lucia and then to the BRICS summit in Brazil as he positions Nigeria more firmly within the global south. But what exactly does Nigeria stand to gain from these engagements, and how much influence can it really wield among emerging economies? Well, State House correspondent Adesua here reports.
President Tinubu began his tour in St. Lucia, where Nigeria formally established diplomatic ties with a small island nation. He addressed the joint session of parliament, announced scholarships and technical aid, and called for visa waivers for officials of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, with a promise of reciprocity.
In consideration of the strategic importance that my country attracts to OECS, we have formally established diplomatic relations with St. Lucia.
He was also conferred with the island's highest national honor, the Knight Commander of the Order of St. Lucia, and met with Nigerian students and professionals living in the country.
For a long time, the continent of Africa literally abandoned the Africans in diaspora, but I think that's changed. With you even now calling the Africans in diaspora the sixth African region.
From the Caribbean, President Tinubu traveled to Brazil, joining leaders from across the developing world for the 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, a gathering that has come to symbolize resistance to Western dominance. Once a 5-member bloc, BRICS now includes countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, and has added a new tier of partner nations, including Nigeria. Together, the expanded group accounts for nearly half of the world's population and around a quarter of global GDP. The summit took place against the backdrop of rising global tensions, and notably, without two of the bloc's most powerful leaders, China's Xi Jinping, who was absent for the first time, and Russia's Vladimir Putin, who continues to attend virtually due to his ICC arrest warrant. While the U.S. imposes new tariffs and threatens further isolation of BRICS-aligned nations, leaders in Rio are pushing back. Brazil's President Lula da Silva warned of the collapse of multilateralism, urging unity among the global south. In his remarks, President Tinubu echoed concerns over worsening global inequalities. He called for a complete overhaul of the global financial and health systems and said Africa, despite contributing the least to global emissions, suffers the most from climate change.
Nigeria therefore called on BRICS to lead a new path of justice anchored on fairness, sustainable technology, transfer and accessible financing, such that emerging economies can fully benefit from the various initiatives in this field.
In a bilateral meeting with President Lula, Tinubu pushed for stronger Nigeria-Brazil ties in sectors including agriculture, energy, mining, and aviation, pledging to remove bureaucratic bottlenecks and stimulate food production through collaboration.
And we are trying to look at that literature to see how we can also plan a template, a framework around completely managing and controlling and finally eradicating foot and mouth disease in Nigeria.
The two presidents met and you could see the passion in them, you could see the intensity of that intention to collaborate and partner with both countries.
As Nigeria deepens its engagement abroad, particularly across the global south, questions remain at home about what these trips mean in practical terms for the average Nigerian. Adesua Omorwan, Arise News.
Well, visa rules for the United States, the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates and Canada have recently changed, with many tightening requirements for Nigerian applicants. Now, the new measures are stirring debates over whether Nigerians are being unfairly targeted. Now, the United States Embassy in Nigeria was first to announce major updates to its non-immigrant visa process, effective July 8. Now, new procedures will ease some restrictions for Nigerian visitors. However, Nigerian students applying to study or take part in exchange programs in the United States are now required to make their social media accounts publicly visible as part of their screening process. Now, beginning July 15, 2025, most applicants seeking to enter the United Kingdom for work or study will no longer receive a physical visa sticker or vignette in their passport. Instead, their visa status will be stored digitally.
Well, joining us now to review the 3-month single entry and UAE's new stringent directives abolishing transit visa to Nigerians is Professor Chukwudi Odoeme. Is the HOD, that's head of the Department Public and International Law of Veritas University here in Abuja. Thank you so much for coming on Newsnight.
My pleasure, always.
We do appreciate your time. From the US to the UAE, are Nigerian passport holders increasingly under scrutiny? And what do you think is responsible for this? Some have limited it to the behavior of a few Nigerians in their host countries. Others say it is the action or inaction of government, it is diplomacy. All manner of excuses are being thrown out. But I mean, you are the professor here. What do you think is responsible? And are we under scrutiny, increased scrutiny?
Let me say there's a bit of each. You know, first of all, we must acknowledge that every country in the world has a right to choose how you come into their country and how you exit, how you transit, how you do business with them. So having said that, we can now go to the point to say what are the peculiarities as to the development. Yes, the behavior of Nigerians is also important because the record has it that many Nigerians walk into countries even with transit visas and stay back. So, and if you look at the United States, for instance, with the American first policies and their strengths, pulling up the strengths on immigration, you will know that that was coming someday. Then again, they are diplomatically hiding under the understanding that is reciprocal, and that's the foundation of international law. What you do to me, I do to you. So it wouldn't be a case of saying that Nigerians are under greater scrutiny at this point. No, we are not worse than any other persons traveling. I think it's also an avenue for us to deepen diplomatic relations with the United States, the UAE, and every other country that has attempted to modify our relationship with them in terms of visa exchanges.
Let me take you up on the issue of on that diplomatic front that you just mentioned. I mean, would you say that Nigeria is failing on the diplomatic front? Is it all of this? Is it a reflection of Nigeria's global standing?
There's no failure here. There's no failure here. Okay. This is what diplomacy is. And of course, you know that Trump came with his American first mantra, and it has affected every facet of American relationship with other countries in the world. It's not only Nigeria. They are, having some diplomatic role with China. Of course, you see what is going on between their relationship with Russia and even Ukraine, and the impact they are making in the war in the Gaza Strip. So it's not anybody. I don't think anybody is looking at Nigeria in particular to do all this. It's just reshaping global interaction systems through visa applications and allowing people entrance to your own country. And by his own diplomatic approach, he's come from the point of excluding others from coming to America. That's good for America. And the only thing I advise that countries like Nigeria should do is also look inwards. Why don't we start a Nigerian first approach where we produce the things we use, do things for ourselves, manufacture here, export and be globally competitive. That's also an opportunity for us to be, highly placed in the diplomatic arena, such that nobody wakes up to tell us, oh, you have just 3 months, or
who we should associate with.
Exactly.
Because in the case of the United States, we're hearing that it has to do with the fact that Nigeria has links with the BRICS nations. Is that something we should, just discountenance, or is it a real factor here?
It's a real factor here. Of course, Trump hasn't hidden his, his anger, per se, in quote, with whoever is interacting with BRICS. He has been up and saying that, look, if you're interacting with BRICS, you are against American interests. And then is how nations survive. National interest first. So Nigeria and every other person who is in BRICS should also consider their position. It's not about joining BRICS. What are you contributing? We need to be globally competitive by, trying to make sure that, we have things to exchange in those blocks. As at now, apart from oil and maybe human resources, I don't think we're contributing much.
In other words, we don't have the leverage.
Yes, even though countries tend to, believe that at the diplomatic level, all countries are equal. But some are more equal than others.
Okay, reminds me of Animal Farm. But Professor, I wonder what your thoughts are. The new US says the new visa, beg your pardon, is about reciprocity. There is a statement from the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs describing this as surprising. They say it is unfair, it is misaligned, and not in the spirit of partnership. While it says diplomatic engagements are ongoing and is asking the US to reverse this decision. One wonders if that came as a surprise and it should be coming as a surprise to the Nigerian Foreign Affairs. Who's actually not keeping to terms here? Because the US says it is reciprocity. Nigeria says it's misaligned and surprising to the spirit of partnership.
Yeah, so let me take you from the point of spirit of partnership and misalignment. If you recall that about 3 weeks ago, a group of Americans came to Nigeria and they were in this station to say, African Americans, to say that why, for instance, why are we, supposed to get visa to come home? So from that point of view, one can say that this is misalignment. This is not partnership, because the bulk of the, the Black Americans, the African Americans, have African roots, and Nigeria in particular. Yeah. So anybody who says it's misalignment coming from this perspective is correct. Then again, the element of, might is also part of international relations. You must not take that away from it. So your ability to have something to contribute at that level also gives you the leverage to negotiate. I don't think it came to them, to us or to the diplomatic community in Nigeria as a surprise. You should have known that that was the trajectory, the American first policy was going. And it's going to affect so many other things, including trade in particular.
Right. I mean, when you have multiple nations, because this is not just the United States that's put this, visa or tightening requirements, visa requirements. United States, UAE, Canada, UK. I mean, at face value, it looks like some kind of gang up against Nigeria. But, in the case of the US is saying that, is reaffirming its diplomatic relationship with Nigeria. It says it is still very much intact. Is this hypocrisy of some sort? How exactly really should Nigeria be responding to this, whether to the US and these other countries at this point?
Yeah, so what Nigeria should do is, we're the giant of Africa, for heaven's sake. Yeah. But we haven't established ourselves as that in recent times. I'll give you an example. If you're traveling from here to Ghana by road, you find the way they treat Nigerians are appalling. Then I imagine, no statistics taken anywhere, that it has to do with the attitude of our people who live across those borders. Incidentally, I just did a mock analysis to find out that there's people who don't have proper Nigerian orientation, who go out there to struggle, find a means of survival by any means. So somehow, these are the Nigerians they know. These are the Nigerians, the average Ghanaian, the average Togolese, the average, Beninouan, come in contact with. The same thing for those of them in UAE, for instance, is you see the people they meet regularly and have regular interactions with maybe these artisans who go there to either do manual labor, house help, jobs. They are not talking about the big man who walks in on diplomatic suits.
Who goes to shop.
Who goes to shop.
The Mall of Emirates or Dubai Mall.
Yes, they ignore those people. But then it's also an opportunity for us to look inwards and strengthen our own relationships, strengthen our own PR. Probably set up a PR team that will, do small image laundry for Nigeria.
Okay, let me ask you, because I want to stay on UAE, and I find this very stringent and discriminatory. Banning Nigerians aged 18 to 45 from traveling solo. You have to travel with a group. And also demanding a $10,000 bank balance from older applicants, that's 45 and above. Many say this is economic profiling and there's no other name for it. When countries impose strict visa filters such as this, I wonder if they violate any international agreement or human rights standards, And or do countries have full rights, you know, to totally say, these are the people we want. We only want the rich people in our country.
Let me say yes. Let me say an emphatic yes to that. UAE is open for business. They are open for business, strictly for business. So if you're coming there, you must add some value to their economy. That's why they're imposing some, monetary constraints to people who want to come into their countries. Then again, for, having people accompany younger persons to that place, I'm sure they have reasons why they do
18 to 45.
Yes, 18 to 45. They have reasons why they do that, yes.
Those are not young people necessarily.
They are not young people, but then the UAE has the right, they have the authority to decide, like I said earlier on, who comes into their country, the conditions upon which they come, the conditions upon which they stay, the conditions upon which they live. So, but I'm saying that, there is need for Nigeria to also grow up.
Yeah, and that's a very good place.
And be the giant of Africa that it is. How many people from UAE come to Nigeria?
Yeah.
So if you place this on the basis of reciprocity, we have no scores against them.
But there was a time when Nigeria was actually, London to many of those countries.
We should get back to that point.
Professor Chukwudi Odoeme is the head of Department, Public and International Law, Veritas University here in Abuja. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight.
My pleasure always.